Hello and welcome to today's Bitrix24 webinar, Better Business Processes. Thank you for joining today. Okay, so we'll just go through some introductions first of all. So my name's Sam Connor. I'm part of the sales team here at Interface. We're Bitrix24 Gold partners. So what we do is we specialize in the Bitrix24 software. We're based in the UK, the US, and Hong Kong. And what we do is we offer a full range of services to assist you with Bitrix24. So first of all, starting off with pre-sales support. So we can really analyze your requirements in detail and see if Bitrix24 is a good fit for what you're trying to achieve. Now, if it is a good fit, then we can help with a full implementation of Bitrix24. So we can design the system for your way of working and make sure you get the most possible value out of Bitrix24. If you're looking at the self-hosted edition of Bitrix, we can provide you with our own hosting services. And then we also offer training and ongoing dedicated support to help you get the most value out of Bitrix24. Okay, so if you are coming to today's webinar and you're evaluating Bitrix, let's just go through what Bitrix24 actually encompasses. So Bitrix24 is essentially a collaboration suite of over 40 different modules that you can use to help you to manage your business. And specifically today, we're going to be looking at the features within Bitrix that can manage business processes, so automations and workflows in your system. But as I say there are over 40 different modules from CRM, HR, project management that you can use within the system. Now, Bitrix is available in two different editions. So we have the Bitrix24 Cloud and the Bitrix24 self-hosted solution. And there are over 12 million customers now around the world that use the Bitrix24 system. So it's a very globally used piece of software. And prices start from approximately $49 per month for a cloud-based license. So that's starting with the basic cloud. Or if you're interested in the self-hosted system, that starts at the Business 50 edition, which is $2,990 for the first 12 months. And then in year 2 and ongoing annually, you need to pay the subscription renewal to continue using your self-hosted system. And that will cost about 25% of the original license fee. Okay, so today's webinar is Better Business Processes. So we're going to be looking at how we can design, manage, and execute business processes inside the Bitrix24 system. But before we go in to look at the actual business processes in detail, it's important to start off with actually looking at what a business process actually is. So a business process essentially is a flow of information defined either by a route or by a scheme. And within Bitrix, there are different types of business processes that we can run. So first of all, the first type of business process is a sequential business process. And a sequential business process performs a series of consecutive actions on an item from a predefined start point to a predefined endpoint. So that's the important aspect of a sequential business process. You have a start and an endpoint. So I'm just going to go into our Bitrix24 system here. And this is what a sequential business process looks like. So this is actually a process for running leave requests through an organization. So if somebody wants to submit some holiday request, this uses a sequential business process. So you can see at the top here, we have a start point. So once this workflow and business process is triggered, it's going to run through the system here. So you've got a predefined here selection of actions that will run until we get here to the bottom, which is the endpoint. So once we hit the end there, there's no other action that will take place on this workflow because you have the start and the endpoints. Okay, so that's a sequential business process. Secondly, we then have a state-driven business process. Now, a state-driven business process does not have start and endpoints. That's the key difference here. It does not have those start and endpoints. What it does have is a series of statuses. And on each one of those statuses, we have trigger child processes that are run. So again, if we go back into Bitrix, this here is now a state-driven business process. So you can see visually straight away, it's very different to a sequential process. We don't have those starting and endpoints. What we have here are different statuses. So this is a state-driven process, which is running on documents. So here we can see the draft status, the publishing status, and the approval status. And then on those different triggers, we then have child processes. So for example, once we're at the draft stage here, we want to send it for approval. So there is a child trigger process there that will run on that status, and so on. So you can create different statuses with child triggers. The next type of process we can run are CRM automations. So if we go into the CRM system, then inside here, we're currently inside leads. Okay, so in leads and deals, we have the option here to run automation rules. So you can run those automations on any stages of leads or deals. So the stages that you create, that's completely customizable to your sales process. Now, we won't go into too much more detail about stages in today's webinar, because we do have a CRM webinar where we focus in detail on building out the CRM. But if we just go into the automation rules here, you can see across the top, we've got different stages that we're progressing the lead through. So new lead, arrange call, follow up, etc. So we're progressing the lead through those stages. And on each one of those stages, what we can do is we can create automated actions, whether that's communicating with the customer, for example. So what we could do is we could set up an email that we send out to the client at that specific stage of the sales process. Or it could be internal activities. So for example, we might want to set up a task for the sales rep to get back in contact with a lead at a certain stage of a sales process. So you can use these to then re-gauge and make sure you're following up with your leads at the correct stage, and essentially starting to automate some of your manual activities using automations inside here. What we can also do is we can use triggers. So we can see at the top here, we have triggers. So an example of a trigger is, let's say if you have a link in an email campaign that you're sending out to your leads, if they click on that link, what we could then do is we could automatically move the lead to a new stage in the lead process. So that's automatically done because we have a trigger set up. So if a lead clicked on a link here on the campaign, we're then automatically moving them to the looking good stage because they're proactively engaging with us. They clicked on that link. So we could then automate them to here, and then you could set up some automations in the looking good stage, either communicating with the client, or it could be internal activities that you're setting up for your sales team. Okay, so that's a look at automations. Now, automations are also available in a new area of the CRM system. This is called smart process automation. So essentially, smart process automation allows you to create your very own entities inside the CRM system. So if we go into one of our applicant tracking entities here, so we're tracking the stages of an application process here. Again, you can create your stages, and then you can also set up your automation rules on that SPA entity as well. So if you want to be able to really customize the CRM and use automations to the most advanced process, then what we can do is use the smart process automation tool. Now, that SPA tool is only available from the professional cloud and above. So if you are on a basic cloud or a standard cloud plan, you're not going to have access to the smart process automation feature. So if that's something you're interested in, you want to be able to create brand new entities inside the CRM system, then we can look to help you to upgrade to the professional cloud license. Okay, so that there is a look at the different types of business processes that we can run inside Bitrix24. And if you have any questions as we go through the webinar today, please do add them into the question box or into the LinkedIn channel, and we can run through those for you. So I see we've had a question already come in. So how can we create leads from emails? I tried to create contacts and leads from emails using CRM button, but it only goes into leads. So if you're wanting to create leads from emails, then this isn't a CRM webinar as such, but let's just quickly go into our Bitrix24 system. So inside here where you've got your mailboxes, then inside here, what we can do once you've connected your mailboxes into the system, in the right hand side here in the settings, we can go into CRM integration. Then inside here, we want to go to the area here in the mailbox settings where it says CRM integration. Click the link to CRM, and then you're going to see here what it is creating. Okay, so if you're talking about an incoming email, which I think you are, then you need to have this button ticked here, the second one down, which is create a lead for an incoming message. So here I would select the lead, create lead for incoming message from new email address. So it's looking if it's a new email address. If it's already an email address in the Bitrix system, then it will just route it to that entity that's already in the system. And then we could also swap that. If you wanted it to create a contact, then you could create a contact. So you can decide there if you wanted to create a lead or a contact inside the CRM system. Okay, hope that answers your question. Okay, so that's a look at the types of business processes. So moving on now, we've seen there the different types of processes. Now let's look at how we can run those business processes inside our Bitrix24 system. So essentially, you can run business processes from a huge number of modules inside Bitrix. There isn't just one area where you would go and trigger and run these business processes. So first of all, we can run business processes from HR and admin sections. So very popular is running these from the feed page directly on the home area of your Bitrix system. So that could be for leave requests or expenses, for example. You can also run these processes in the CRM system, whether that's leads, deals, contacts, companies. You can run those processes. It could be on documents. So in the drive area, if we have the business processes turned on, you could run them directly on documents. Also in lists. So lists are quite popular within projects. We can run automations directly on tasks. And then with the self-hosted, it's also possible to create your own custom areas for running processes. So whether that's, say, for example, on a user's profile, or it could be a brand new custom module where you might want to trigger a business process. So you can see here, what we're trying to say here, there really isn't just one area for running a business process. They really can be running almost all areas of Bitrix24. So it's important you know where those are actions. So let's now go back into our Bitrix system. Okay, and now let's go into the homepage. Okay, so we're here on the feed area, and the feed area is really important. So you should use this to gather updates across your Bitrix system. So the feed is going to show you really any new updates that you are specifically associated to. So it's your own personal newsfeed board directly inside your Bitrix system. But from here, if I wanted to run a workflow, what I can do is I can go into the top here where it says more, and then I can click on a workflow. So I can click into the workflow area, and this is going to show me now a selection of workflows that I could run in the system. Now, we won't go through a whole workflow right now because we're going to go through one later on in today's webinar. But if I clicked on, say, request leave form, that will open up the request leave section for the workflow where I could fill in this form and then trigger the creation of that workflow. Now, the actual workflows that show inside here, you can customize this. So you may want to show additional workflows rather than just the standard 5 that come out of the box. With Bitrix, we can customize that. So if you want to show more workflows, then it is possible to do that as well. Okay, so that's a look directly inside the feed area. But if we say, let's go into the CRM system, let's go into companies. It's also possible in the CRM system to run our business processes. Okay, so inside our company here, so this is the company page. If we want to run a process manually here, I just need to go into the top right-hand corner, and then inside here, I can click on the icon and it's going to show me all of the business processes that are available on companies. So we could run these manually on any entity from leads, deals, contacts, or companies. So you can set up different workflows for each entity. Let's go into the drive area as well. So if we just bring the drive up here, we can also store processes in the drive. So you have your own personal drive space, and you've also got the company drive. So in the company drive here, you just need to make sure, first of all, if you go into here, configure business processes, you need to have that button ticked for business processes to be enabled, essentially. So our business processes are enabled. So now on a document, what I could now do inside here is I could run a business process. So let's say in here, I can see the business processes that we have set up. So I could run a business process on a document like so. Okay, so that's another way. We've already mentioned how we can set up automations inside the CRM system. You can also do this on tasks and projects. So if we go into our section here for tasks, then inside here, what we could then also do on different projects that we're running, you also have the ability here to run automations. So this is looking at the different stages of the Kanban for this project. So based on those stages, again, very similar to leads and deals, we could then run automated actions. So let's say, for example, in the urgent stage here. So what we've got, first of all, is a trigger. So as soon as a task becomes overdue, we're going to automatically update the stage of that task to the urgent stage. And because it's at the urgent stage, we're then changing who is responsible for that task. So you can see here, it's gone to a more senior manager to get that task back on track. So that's a really good example of how you can mix triggers and automation rules inside tasks. Okay, so let's look inside our tasks area. It's also possible if we go into one of our projects, so we can run projects inside Bitrix, and we do have a webinar designed solely on project management. So we go into detail about how we can create and run projects. But if I just quickly go into our project area, we also have the option here to run lists. And lists are essentially tables of information. So for example, in this project, we've got an expenses list. So inside here, we can store all of the different expenses associated with this project. And on those expenses, we can run business processes. So I could send it for approval to the project manager to either approve or reject inside the system. And we can see the statuses here of those expenses. So if I wanted to look at everything that's currently in pending, I could just go into there and see what we have pending inside the system. Okay, so that's a look there at where we can run business processes. So as you can see, there really is not one area. You can run business processes in many different areas of the Bitrix system, and you can decide as well if they're run manually or if it's using automations, so they're triggered based on, say, a stage. We can look at later on in the webinar at how we can trigger business processes. Okay, so let's just see if we have any questions. Okay, question here on LinkedIn. So is Bitrix supplied with pre-built business processes? So yes, absolutely. We go back into the Bitrix system, and if we go into the feed, we're just going to go into the workflow area. So from the feed, go into the workflow. If we go into our workflow directory, here you can see the standard workflows. Okay, so we have 5 workflows that are included as standard inside the system. So expenses, general requests, leave approval, purchase requests, and business trips. So those are the 5 workflows that are included as standard. Okay, if there are any other questions, please do add them into the question box in Zoom or on LinkedIn, and we can run through those for you as we go through the intervals of today's webinar. Okay, so moving on then, what we'll look at now is how we can create a business process. So it's really important to know how to create business processes inside the system, and specifically using the business process editor tool. So let's take a look at how we can design the business process. And what we'll do here is we'll go into the deal area of the CRM system, and we're going to create a new business process that looks at what stage the deal is at. And then based on that stage, we're going to create a process so it runs specific actions based on that stage. And we're going to use the business process editor tool. And it's really important to know how to use this, because it does allow you to create really advanced business processes inside the system. Because Bitrix, essentially with the business process tool, it uses drag and drop technology, and it includes over 40 pre-built action blocks. So there's a huge number of different types of processes we could create in the business process designer tool. Okay, so let's go. First of all, then we said how we're going to create a business process on deals inside the CRM. So let's go into the CRM first of all. And then what we want to do is go into settings. And then I'm going to go to CRM settings here. And then from the menu on the left-hand side, we want to go to automations. And then let's click on the business processes button. And this then opens up the entities of our CRM system. So first of all, what we want to do is select the correct entity. So we want to create this process on a deal. So let's now here, we can see the deal area. Let's click add template. This then opens up the template parameters form. So essentially, first of all, we need to give the business process a title and also maybe a description so people are aware of what this process does. So we're going to be looking at when the deal stage changes. So let's call it deal stage business process. Okay, and then I could also add a description. Okay, and then we can choose when this process is run. So you might want to do this when the deal is added, or you might want this to run when there is any change made to the deal. So it's then going to look at what stage it's at. Or if you wanted to run it manually, as we saw earlier on in the Techco company page in the top right-hand corner, where you can run a business process manually, you could also do that on the deal as well. So we're going to do this when there's any change made to the deal. Okay, so just to explain then, so we can tell we're in a sequential business process because we have a start and an endpoint. And then on the right hand side here, we have all of the different parameters that we can run essentially for our process. So these are all the different action blocks that we can add to our workflow. So you can see here there is a huge number of different tools that we could add as action blocks to our business process. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to add a condition first of all. So let's just go into our flow control, and we want to add a condition because this is now the different stages that we're going to be looking at of our deal. Now we've got two condition branches here. We want to add a third because we're going to look at 3 different stages of the deal. And so we click to actually now start to make the configurations. In the branch here, you just click on the settings cogwheel, and then we want to select a field because we're going to be looking at the stage of the field here. So let's go into our element area, and we're going to be looking for the deal stage. So we can see here the stage, we select that, and we're going to now select the stage for our deal. So we're going to be looking here at this door-to-door delivery service pipeline. So let's first of all go into here and let's go on the new deal stage. So this is a brand new deal. So let's give that title. Okay, so let's now input that. And then we're going to go through here essentially and just configure all of the different stages that we want to be looking at inside the process. So let's go into here. Now, setting up these business processes, it can be complex, but it is very rewarding because you can build very advanced processes. But this is exactly where we come in here at Interface. So once you maybe want to set up a workflow, we can help to design that with you, or we can also build it for you as well. So we can really help to make sure your processes are set up exactly how you need them to work. Okay, so let's now add the send contract stage. And then the final stage here is going to be when the booking is won. Okay, so we're going to here, we're just going to complete the booking there. Okay, so we've got our stages. So when there's any change made to the deal, we're going to be looking here to see what stage the deal is at. And then based on that, what we can now do is we can add different action blocks into here as we are progressing through our different stages. So let's say, for example, once we're inside the system here, let's say, for example, we might want to set up a phone call as soon as we hit the new deal stage. But then once we get to here sending the contract out, what we then might want to do is set up a credit check. Okay, so here we could pull in the credit check action block, and we're going to check that they have enough credit to actually go ahead with the contract. And then once we get to the booking completed stage, let's send out a thank you email to the clients, thanking them for their purchase. And we're going to notify the sales manager. So we're not just going one way here. We're going to go to the customer to thank them, and we're internally sending another action there to confirm it with the sales manager. So essentially, that's how we can set up a business process. We've got the start point, we've got our conditions to see what stages we're looking at, and we're going to run this every time the deal changes, any element of that deal, and then we've set up our action blocks. And for example, here on this email, so thank you for your order, all we do is click in the settings area there, and then it opens up the email. So you can customize the text here, or you can move it into HTML format. So this is where you then populate the templates for the information that we're running on those action blocks. So that is how we can set up a business process. And as I say, if you are wanting to set up your own types of business processes, if you need some assistance, then that's where we can come in. So if you just contact sales@intraface.com, we can help to build out and design your workflow. And then if you need our team to implement it, then we can do that and save you significant amounts of time and make sure that the workflow is set up correctly for your way of working. It's very easy here to set up processes that are disjointed or not set up with the correct approval processes. So it's very important you get a team who are experienced in setting up these business processes to support you, so you get value for money out of your business process. Okay, so that is a look at how we can use the business process design tool to create a process. And as we have looked at earlier on, if you wanted to, you could instead use the deal and lead automation tool. So in automations here, you can use the create button. So if I wanted to say, for example, send an email out to the customer, then I could use this here, add that into the automation channel. And then through here, essentially, you add your template, and it can be dynamically populated with information from the lead. So inside here, that's going to pull in now the lead name. Okay, so you can see here how we can start to add our templates into the system. And you can choose the time parameters as well. So you might want to run these actions as soon as the lead hits that specific stage, or it may be you want to run this, let's say, 2 days after it's been at that stage in the system. So you can really customize here exactly when those actions are run inside leads and deals. Now, one thing just to show you as well. So what we've just seen there is using the business process designer tool to design a business process. Now, there is also another option when it comes to building out processes inside Bitrix. And this uses quite a new tool that is available inside Bitrix24. And that's what we call robotic process automation. So let's just bring up here our other Bitrix system. This is what we call RPAs, so robotic process automation. Now, the reason this was built is because there were some customers who found using the business process designer tool maybe a bit too complex, a bit overwhelming, and really couldn't get value out of that. So Bitrix have created what we call RPAs. And essentially this uses a lot of the technology from leads and deals. So if I click here on our business trip RPA, what this does is it allows you to create workflows very similar, but essentially what we do is we create the different stages now to progress the workflow. So for a business trip here, we've got create expense, approval by supervisor, submit the expense receipts, and then approval by accounts. So you create the stages just like you would in leads or deals, and then you set up automation rules at every single stage of the process. So for example, once it goes to the supervisor here in the second stage, they're going to be notified and there is an action to perform. So at every stage of your workflow here, you can set up different automations that are actions. So essentially, this is a more simplified way of creating workflows inside Bitrix24. So that's something, if you find the business process designer tool a bit overwhelming, I would recommend looking at RPAs as well. Okay, so that's a look at creating business processes. Let's move on now to look at how we can actually trigger those business processes inside the system. So when we say triggering, this is what we mean by actually actioning that business process. So for example, if we wanted to submit a holiday request, how is that going to be actioned inside Bitrix? So let's now take a look at the different options. Okay, so first of all, what we can do is we can trigger a business process on creation or on update. So a really good example here is, say, let's say when a new lead comes into the CRM system, we could have a business process that is run automatically as soon as that lead comes into the CRM system. We could then also run that business process if a field is updated in that lead. So let's say if we have a custom field in the lead, which is lead rating. And if we change the rating from low to high, that could then trigger a business process in the back end of Bitrix for you. You can also trigger a process manually. So as we've seen a few times already in today's webinar, you could run that, say, from within the CRM system manually. It could be from the feed area where we submitted for a holiday leave. So that's how we can run it manually inside the system. But it's also possible if you want to, for example, to use webhooks. So if you wanted to trigger a process maybe from another area system, then that could be done maybe from when an order is placed on a website. That could then trigger a process inside Bitrix. So there's a few options there using webhooks. And with the self-hosted system, we can take that to another level with external triggers. So we could set up, for example, it could be rules on mailboxes. So as soon as, let's say, for example, an email comes into a mailbox, we could create a help desk ticket or use an API call inside the system. So you have, essentially with the self-hosted system, you have a lot more advanced capabilities to run business processes. So if I go back into, let's go into the self-hosted edition here. Let's just go into the control panel. So essentially the control panel here, this is the back end of your Bitrix system. So you wouldn't have your standard users to have access here. This is only for your key administrators. But inside here, if we go into our mail area, so inside the services, we can go into our mail section, so we can integrate mailboxes. And then with the self-hosted system, we can create rules. So for example, as soon as an email comes into a mailbox, we could then automatically create a help desk ticket inside the system. And using our help desk module that's available for the self-hosted system, that ticket could then automatically be connected with the contact inside the CRM system. So we can see our help desk area here. So as soon as an email comes into a mailbox, we could create a help desk ticket here inside the system. And then if we go into the CRM, and if we go into one of our contacts, then what we're able to do inside here is I can then see those help desk tickets directly inside the system. So if I go into our help desk area, you can see all of the tickets connected with that contact. So you can have that full connection, and that's available with the self-hosted edition of Bitrix. Okay, so let's now take a look at a few live examples. So first of all, let's go into our CRM system. Now, one way we can use a mixture of business process with stages is, for example, let's say if we had a deal that we're working on right now. What we want to do is, once that deal is completed, we want to create a project in the project management area of Bitrix. So it creates specific tasks that have to be completed. There's mandatory tasks, and it brings groups of people together who we need to work on that project. So if I go into automation rules, if I click here, so we can see when the booking is completed stage, we've got a workflow set up here. And we can see here, when we open up the business process, this is going to create a project group inside the project management area. And we can see there's specific tasks that are going to be completed within that project. So this is a really good way of streamlining the creation of projects in the system using a business process. So if we go into this particular particular deal, I'm going to complete the booking here. So for order 8, that has now been completed. And now what we'll see is, we can see here, it's now creating the tasks inside the project management area of Bitrix. So if we go into tasks and projects, and if we click in projects, then inside here, if we just search for order 8, we can see here that's now created a project group in the project management area. And it's created those 3 tasks that now need to be completed, and it's assigned the relevant staff to those tasks. So this is a really useful way to kind of manage the flow from when a deal is won in the CRM to having your onboarding customer success team acknowledging and start to work on the customer's project. It can save from human error by creating the wrong tasks or creating the wrong group, and it can save significant amounts of time, because whereas if I was going to create that project manually with those tasks, it's going to take some time. Bitrix has done that within seconds as soon as that deal has been won. So it's a really good way of using business processes. Okay, let's take another example. So let's request for some holiday leave inside the system. So to do that, we're going to go into our feed area, and then we're going to click on the workflow section. And then we want to click on the request leave form. So that now opens up a form that we have to fill in to submit for some holiday leave. Now, the form you're seeing here, this is not the specific form that you may use. So you might want to add additional fields into this form. You can see we've got mandatory fields here. You can customize that. So you might want to have only maybe certain fields mandatory, add your own fields. That's absolutely fine. So let's add our holiday leave request. So I'm going to select the dates for the leave. I'm going to select the reason. Okay, and I'm going to say that, yeah, that's annual leave. So I'm going to submit that request now inside the system. And then if we go back into look at the manager here, then what we can see here, if we go into our feed area, I can see now a new request has come in for a holiday leave. So let's now go into my feed area, and I can see that request has come in from Mark. So I can see all of the details about the request. So I can see when they're looking at the 1st of September. So what I'm actually going to do first of all here is I'm going to go into our absence chart. So if I go into our employees area, and if I go into the work time absence chart, I can just check here. This will show all absences across the business for different types of leave, whether it's business trips, annual leave, etc. So I'm going to go to September. I can see someone's off on the 17th, so that's fine. It doesn't clash with that 1st when the user Mark wants to have that off. So I'm going to approve that request inside the system. And then if we go back into the absence chart, we'll see that that request has been added into the absence charts. Okay, so if we refresh, that will get added into the chart here. And then what will happen is the user will be notified that that request has been granted, and they could also add some comments into here as well. Okay, so if they wanted to show how urgent something is, they could add that message into the system as well. Now we have additional plugin available for the absence management feature. So right now you could request as many leaves as you wanted through the system, that you don't have a leave entitlement on here. What we have created for the self-hosted edition of Bitrix is an absence management module. So inside here, what you can do is you can add a leave entitlement for every single user, and that can be different for each user. So as the user is adding new leave requests and they're getting approved, their entitlement will get reduced once those holidays have been approved. But if they come to the end of their holiday year and they still have some leave remaining, that can then be carried over to the next holiday year. So if you want to have leave entitlement, we have a plugin available for the self-hosted edition that gives you that capability. Okay, so let's look at some examples of how we can run business processes. So now just to move on to look at some of the differences between the cloud and the self-hosted. So most of the tools that we're looking at are available for both cloud and self-hosted solutions. They both include editor tools, but if you want to use the business process designer tool and smart process automation, you're going to need to have at least the professional cloud license. Okay, so that's just something to bear in mind. And I think the main difference and benefit of a self-hosted system is the option to run processes on extra modules, such as on user profiles, where we can run them on mailboxes to create help desk tickets, etc. So you can just go to a lot more advanced capability with the self-hosted system. And as I say, with a self-hosted system, you can either host that locally or on your own private cloud, or we can manage the whole hosting for you. So you don't need to worry about a server. We can manage the whole setup for you. Okay, so that is the end of today's Better Business Processes webinar. So in summary, we've seen how we can run different types of processes, whether it's sequential, state-driven, automation rules. So business processes can be run on a huge number of different areas of Bitrix, from documents, CRM entities, smart process automation entities, HRs and lists. Using the business process designer tool, you've got that simple drag and drop workflow creator tool where you can create your own actions. And business processes can be run in different ways. So whether that's being triggered manually, automatically on change or creation, or it could be done by an API call as well. Okay, so that is the end of today's Better Business Processes webinar. Here are a selection of our upcoming webinars. So we're here every other Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. If you have any questions in the meantime, please do contact us, sales@intraface.com. One of our team will be happy to set up a call with you